Okay, now that we've kind of seen what Corel has to offer in terms of all the papers that already come loaded, let me show you how to make your own paper. It's really pretty simple. What you want to do is, I'm going to go ahead and continue to work with the pastel here, and I'm going to shrink this down a little bit, and I'm just going to work with black so I can kind of see what I'm doing. And I'm just going to draw. Whoops, let me go ahead and switch to blank paper here. It's basic paper. Now I'm going to go ahead and just kind of draw some, little curly Q guys. And what you want to think about while you're doing this is you're basically kind of like making like indentations into the paper. And then when you draw on top of it with some kind of dry media like a pastel, these indentations will show up. That's really the best way that I can kind of describe it. And you can also go into here and actually play with some of the existing patterns, some of the existing textures. So if I want to put some little dots in my paper, that's fine too. So now I'm kind of like, imprinting these little dot pattern into my paper. Okay, now once you get the paper that you want to create, I know this is a little on the boring side, what you want to go do is go ahead to the marquee tool, the little square thing with the dots around it, and go ahead and select the area that has the pattern that you want to create. Once you have that, go to the paper palette here, all these little papers, hit the little second fly out button where we have the launch palette and all that other kind of stuff. And what you want to do is capture paper, and then you want to go ahead and name your paper. My paper 2, because I already have one there. And the crossfade basically determines how this pattern is going to fade in with itself, because what Painter is going to do is repeat this pattern a bunch of times, and then it's up to you how well you want it to kind of bleed into itself. That's the best way I can really explain it. And just go ahead to OK, and I'm going to open up a new canvas here so we can kind of see what we're doing. And then I will go to the papers, and you can see my paper 2 is there. And now what I'm going to do is go ahead, and I've got my pastel, and I'm going to switch to my brush here. Let me go ahead and deselect. I can go ahead and draw on my paper. And it's picking up the exact texture that I had. And notice it's not really anywhere where I didn't draw on there. You can see the pattern as it actually kind of mimics there. Mimics the pattern that you drew, and basically kind of repeats it. And you can do anything that you did with the other papers, you can do with this paper. So if I want to go here and say, let me go ahead and launch palette. Oh, looks like it was already there. And then you want to actually increase or decrease this, you can do that. And if you get it really small, you can actually, there we go, you can actually see the paper that you're working with. And see, now you have the paper really small, and you can increase and decrease this, and then if you wanted to, you can actually make a paper out of this, which would probably be a little more interesting than what I kind of already had. And you notice that it's not really drawing in the white areas. What you want to do, if you really want to get in those white areas, it's really tricky to do, but first of all, maybe increase the opacity a little bit, and more importantly, increase the grain. Now you're able to actually draw, get some value in there, and at the same time it's still kind of picking up the texture of the paper. The paper that I created is a little bit on the boring side. Let me go ahead and kind of show you some of the other papers that I've created really quick here. Open up a new document. And what I've done is I've kind of played around with some of the existing papers, and I've also imported images from the internet, because you can also, not only can you actually create papers out of, drawing little swirly cubes or whatever, but you can actually create papers out of images. So I actually have a scar and stitches brush that I created. So you can see if I draw really lightly, you can see the little scars and stitches, and then if I draw a little bit too much pressure, all of a sudden they get kind of covered up, which is why I'm going to keep my grain down quite a bit. I don't like it that much. There we go. Now I'm able to draw, and it's kind of picking up that texture there. I also have a meat cuts one. I have little images of meat cuts. a butterfly and wallpaper one, and these are just images that I just kind of played around with, got them off the internet, and put them on the canvas, played around with the value contrast, and then selected them and made my own paper out of them. I also have a hamburger one, hamburger and butterflies, yum yum. And probably one of my favorites is the paisley pattern that I created.